brilliant and dangerously handsome Professor Herbert Reed and his irresistibly reckless and sexy student, Bridger Knoll, are about to blur the boundaries between science and seduction, as their school science project is more than a machine. It's designed to be the perfect companion, but when passion overrides logic, and the line between man and machine vanishes, anything can happen. Happy anniversary, bros! Yep, it's Steamy Stories' 3-year anniversary, and we're celebrating with something special. Written by your favorite scribe, JC Calciano. It's a prequel to his novel Revenge of the Brobot. Wait, you didn't know he wrote a book? Well, he did, and it's available exclusively on Amazon now. It's a hilarious, sexy, male-male sci-fi romance that will blow your socks off. So settle in and get super cozy for this high-tech tale of love as I share with you this month's steamy story, The Brobot. Professor Herbert Reed stood at the front of the packed lecture hall, the glow of the projection screen casting sharp shadows on his chiseled face. Tall and broad-shouldered, with the kind of effortless strength that came from years of morning runs and late-night weight sessions, he exuded authority. His dark brown hair was neatly styled, but a few rebellious strands fell over his forehead when he got too lost in thought. Behind wire-rimmed glasses, his storm-gray eyes swept the room with a quiet intensity, piercing but never unkind. He pushed up his glasses, scanning the eager students as he concluded his lecture on adaptive robotics. "The problem," he said, "is coordination. How do we create artificial intelligence that doesn't just react, but moves in perfect synchronization with its environment?" "Well, any ideas?" A hand shot up from the middle row. "Professor Reed, wouldn't it make more sense to integrate a predictive feedback loop rather than rely solely on reactive behaviors?" The voice was smooth but confident, belonging to Bridger Knoll, a sharp-witted 25-year-old graduate student known for challenging conventional thinking. Bridger had the kind of sculpted physique that made people do double takes. Lean but powerful, his tight white t-shirt stretching just enough to hint at the firm chest beneath. His golden blonde hair had that perpetually tousled look, as if he had just finished an impromptu surf session, and his blue eyes shimmered with intelligence and mischief. He radiated a carefree energy, but underneath that easy smile was a mind as sharp as a razor. Herbert arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "Interesting approach, Mr. Knoll. We'll discuss that more in next week's seminar. Class dismissed." But as Herbert gathered his notes and prepared to leave the lab, he found himself thinking about the question. It was insightful, innovative, and so was the sexy young man who had asked it. Over the next few weeks, Bridger began staying after class, his questions becoming more complex, his presence enduring. His late nights at the robotic lab helped Herbert with his experiments and became routine. What started as a professional mentorship between the student and teacher evolved into long hours of collaboration, hushed discussions over circuit boards, and the occasional playful challenge over coding efficiency. And there was something else. Tension, thick and unspoken. Bridger was bold. He flirted shamelessly with Herbert, his comments thick with sexual innuendo and subtle invitations, though always with an air of plausible deniability. Herbert remained stoic, unwilling to cross a line, but he couldn't deny the way his pulse quickened whenever Bridger leaned in, just a little too close. One evening, after another late-night session in the lab, Bridger leaned against the workbench, arms crossed, the definition of his toned biceps accentuated beneath the sleeve of his fitted shirt. "You need a break, Professor. Come camping with me this weekend. No robots, no code, just nature. Maybe inspiration will strike, as well as an answer to your questions about AI." Herbert hesitated. Spending an entire weekend alone with Bridger, away from the carefully maintained boundaries of the lab, was dangerous. But something in him, something restless and craving, said yes. They arrived in the forest early Saturday morning, The air was crisp and clean, carrying the earthy scent of damp leaves and pine. Morning mist curled lazily between the towering trees, their golden autumn leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. Sunlight streamed through the gaps of the dense canopy, dappling the woodland floor in shifting patterns of light and shadow. The only sounds were the occasional call of a distant bird and the rhythmic crunch of their boots against the soft, mossy ground. It was a world away from the sterile hum of the laboratory and the classroom. The wild seemed untamed, alive, and full of promise. The first hike of the day was exhilarating. They reached a breathtaking overlook where the land stretched endlessly before them. By the time they set up camp, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold. That night, seated around the fire, whiskey warming their hands, they spoke freely. Dreams, fears. Herbert revealed more than he intended. His frustration with academic politics and his longing to create something groundbreaking to help humanity become a better place. Bridger listened, fascinated. "You will," he assured him. "You're too brilliant not to." The fire crackled between them, but Herbert felt a different kind of heat, one that had nothing to do with flames. Later, a bit tipsy from the whiskey, they crawled into the tent. The space between them felt both impossibly close and infinitely far. Herbert lay on his back, staring at the tent's nylon ceiling, acutely aware of Bridger's presence beside him. Then, a rustle, a shift in the body next to him. Bridger peeled off his shirt to get more comfortable, revealing sculpted abs and a V-line that disappeared into his low-slung cotton pajama pants. His muscles flexed subtly with every movement, the soft lantern glow accentuating the deep grooves along his chest and stomach. The expanse of his tan skin seemed to invite Herbert's gaze, every line and contour, a perfect blend of strength and grace. Herbert swallowed hard, his breath growing shallow. Every inch of Bridger's muscular young body was a masterpiece. Lean muscle rippling beneath smooth skin. The fine sheen of sweat catching the light, just enough to make Herbert's fingers twitch with the urge to touch. "Don't you dare," he said quietly to himself. "You're his professor, and this is a platonic weekend in the woods. Calm yourself and be professional." Herbert turned on his side, attempting to will himself to sleep, but his gaze betrayed him. He was drawn helplessly to the man beside him and couldn't keep his eyes off him. Bridger stretched slightly, feigning slumber, his toned arms flexing the length of the small tent, deliberately drawing Herbert's eyes lower to where his abs tapered into that maddeningly perfect V on either side of a golden trail of hair beneath his navel. A slow, knowing smile spread across Bridger's lips as he reached for Herbert, his fingers curling around the nape of his professor's neck, pulling him closer. Herbert quietly gasped. For a moment he wavered, resisted. Then he leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, then hungrily. Months of restrained desire in the classroom unraveled instantly. The night outside was silent, but inside the tent, it was anything but still. Bridger's strong hands slid down Herbert's back, tracing the muscles hidden beneath his t-shirt before pulling it off entirely. "For a college professor, you're quite the stud," Bridger remarked, trying not to sound surprised. "Being a scientist and an academic doesn't mean ignoring your body. I work out 5 times a week. The mind-body connection is vital to maximum cognitive efficiency." "Sure, whatever, Professor. All I'm saying is, you're totally swole, and I find it super hot." Skin met skin as they tore each other's clothes with reckless urgency, desperate to shed the last barriers between them. For a moment, Herbert forgot about boundaries, robotics, and university politics. There was only one Bridger, and he was going to give him his undivided attention. The next morning, Herbert woke early, slipping out of the tent while Bridger still slept. He sat on a nearby rock, cradling a cup of coffee, staring out at the forest. A flock of birds took flight, their movements synchronized, adapting seamlessly to each other's patterns. It was effortless, perfect, and suddenly he knew. A decentralized system, one that mimicked nature's unpredictable yet cohesive motion. This could revolutionize his robotics project. His heart pounded. He needed to get back to the lab, now. Bridger emerged from the tent, stretching, his well-developed frame flexing under the morning light. His hair was an adorable mess. His eyes held a teasing glint. "It looks like you're running off already. I hoped for a second round before returning to the city this morning." Herbert chuckled, tilting his head as if to reconsider his decision to leave suddenly. "I just had a breakthrough. I'd like to get back. I'll explain it all in the car." Bridger laughed, realizing that Herbert would always put science first, even before sex. "All right, Professor, let's go change the world." Once at the lab, Herbert and Bridger rolled up their sleeves and got to work, fine-tuning the programming of his robot's AI based on his groundbreaking epiphany. This wasn't just any machine. It was a project so secret, so personal, that Bridger was the only person Herbert had ever confided in about it. Unlike the soulless automatons mass-produced by corporate giants, Herbert's creation was meant to be more than a tool. It was meant to be something that could change the world. Sure, it was an android, but something organic lay beneath its structure. A synthetic mind designed not only to think, but to feel and think on its own. Herbert called it ROB, Rob, robot with an organic body. It would look human, but it was far more. It was designed to be a friend, a lover, a helper, true companionship in every sense of the word. For weeks, the two men worked tirelessly. The nights blurred together as they labored over every line of code, every connection in the synthetic neural network, and every sculpted detail of the skeleton. It had to be perfect, not just functional but intuitive. It needed to anticipate needs, to learn, to evolve. Most importantly, it needed to look human and have a personality. Bridger, ever the playful one, jokingly suggested giving Rob his own voice, his own personality. "Imagine it, a perfect copy of me," he laughed. Herbert hesitated. Ethical lines were now being blurred. Bridger was still a student, and using him in an experiment was grounds for dismissal. But Bridger was also the only other person Herbert trusted. And now he was a scientist, just as deeply involved in Rob's creation as Herbert himself. Despite these second thoughts, Herbert agreed. A month later, their Brobot, as Bridger affectionately dubbed it, was complete, and when they finally activated it, the result was astounding. The robot blinked to life, its voice smooth, its mannerisms eerily familiar. It didn't just sound like Bridger, it also behaved and responded like him, a living, breathing, mechanical reflection of the man who had helped create it. Bridger took a step back, his eyes widening. "Wow, that's unsettling." Herbert smirked, arms crossed. "We can change it if you want. I agree, it's a bit unnerving." But after a moment, Bridger shook his head. "No, let's leave it for now. I mean, if this is going to be a companion, why not base it on someone awesome?" he grinned. "What about the exterior?" Bridger continued, running a hand along the robot's unfinished metallic frame. "The endoskeleton is solid, but when we cover it in organic material, who should it look like?" "Let's make it a hot movie star." Herbert chuckled. "Let's keep it as is from now. We'll present it to the board for additional funding, and once approved, we can refine the aesthetics." Bridger nodded, though in the back of his mind, he already had an idea of whose image he wanted to shape it into. As Herbert continued making a few final tweaks to Rob's personality profile, Bridger quietly slipped out of the lab. In the adjoining classroom, he set up an air mattress, draped in crisp sheets and scattered them with rose petals. A small table stood beside it, adorned with candlelight and a meal from their favorite restaurant. It was the perfect romantic setting. "Herbert, come next door. I need you to come here and help me with something." Herbert's voice carried through the adjoining lab, filled with excitement. "Your timing is impeccable. Rob is done. Perfect. We should celebrate." As Herbert stepped into the dimly lit adjoining room to join Bridger, he stopped, taking in the scene before him. The glow of candlelight flickered over Bridger's face, illuminating the proud, playful smile tugging at his lips. A bottle of champagne sat chilling in a bucket of ice. The meal, still warm, gave off an inviting aroma. Pop! The cork flew from the bottle, and Bridger beckoned Herbert closer. "You did it, my hunky mad scientist. I am so impressed and proud of you. A toast to your victory." "Our victory," Herbert quickly corrected, as he wasted no time closing the distance between them, capturing Bridger's lips in a deep, passionate kiss before murmuring against his mouth. "We did it together. None of this would be possible without you. The programming, the breakthroughs. You're a genius wrapped up in the body of an Adonis. Who is luckier than me?" Bridger laughed, his voice rich with affection. "Me? That's who's luckier." Their lips met again, softer this time, a slow burn igniting between them. Herbert turned to glance at the table. "It's a shame all this food is going to get cold." Bridger smirked. "Yeah, it'll make a nice late-night snack. Maybe even breakfast." Without another word, he playfully pushed Herbert onto the mattress, his fingers swiftly unfastening his belt buckle. The flickering candlelight cast shadows along their entwined bodies as the celebration began. The following day, Herbert woke with a start. His heart pounded as he took in his surroundings. He was at the university. The bed, food, and robot were still there, evidence of the night before. But soon students would arrive and see everything. Panic set in as he bolted upright. "Bridger, where are you? The students will be here in an hour. We need to get this all put away before anyone arrives." Silence. Bridger was nowhere to be found. Herbert scrambled, hastily cleaning up the remnants of their evening. He stowed the robot away, cleared the table, stuffed the air mattress into a storage closet, and did his best to erase any sign of what had happened. "I can do this. I'll be fine," he kept telling himself. "No one will know." By the time he finished cleaning up, only 15 minutes remained before the first class. Herbert stood behind his desk, trying to steady his breath and suppress the chaos still buzzing in his mind. "You've got this. You're good." Then, as he glanced at his watch, the tension broke. A deep rumbling laugh escaped him, echoing through the empty lecture hall. "It's Saturday!" he yelled, shaking his head at his own folly. Relief flooded through him as he flopped into his chair. No one was coming. There was no lesson to be unprepared for. Today he had time. Time to breathe. Time to process. Time to focus on the next step. Preparing Rob for its grand unveiling to the funders. But still one question gnawed at him. Where is Bridger? As he looked down at the disarray on his desk, something caught his eye, a single note, stark against the clutter. The name on the front was scrawled in a familiar, bold handwriting. Herbert. His breath caught, hands slightly trembling. He picked it up and unfolded it. Then he read with trembling hands. Herbert, I'm so sorry to disappear, but the truth is, I was never just a student. I was sent here, watching and gathering intel for a company that wanted to steal your research. But I couldn't do it. I fell in love with you, your mind and your dream. And now they will come for me because I refuse to betray you. If I stay, they'll come for you too. You have to believe me when I say this is the only way. Keep building Rob. Make him real. Make him in my likeness to protect both of us. And know that no matter where I am, I will always love you. The note fell from Herbert's hands. His breath grew shallow as the weight of the words devastated him. Bridger had been forced to vanish, to protect him. Bridger was gone, leaving behind only a letter and uncertainty. What else between them had been a lie? The weight of doubt pressed against his chest. But he found he knew the truth in his heart. Bridger had left to protect him. But now, Herbert was alone, and he had to think fast. Bridger's sudden disappearance would raise questions. Would people suspect foul play? Would Herbert be blamed? He didn't have the answers, but he knew one thing for certain. Bridger was right. Creating Rob in his likeness would buy Herbert time and provide a plausible explanation for Bridger's absence, at least for now. Determined, Herbert set to work. As he cleared the letter, a small data chip fell from the envelope on the desk. Herbert's hands trembled as he inserted the chip into his workstation. A holographic file appeared, revealing a full 3D scan of Bridger's face and body, down to the finest detail. A message accompanied it on screen. Now you'll have everything you need to make him a perfect replica of me. If I can't be there with you, at least part of me can. Tears blurred Herbert's vision as he ran his fingers over his monitor. With this, he could give Rob not just Bridger's personality and voice, but his exact form. Every scar, every dimple, every bit of the man he loved could be reconstructed. As he stared at his computer, Herbert finally vowed to finish what they had started and protect Bridger at all costs by recreating his perfect likeness in Rob. Rob would never replace Bridger in his heart, but for years to come he would be the ideal companion. It wasn't until much later that Rob's true identity as an android was revealed to the board. Herbert was hailed as a genius and visionary, securing his position as head of his department at Hot Body Robotics. Bridger was never seen again. But their creation, Rob, lives on and is about to embark on the most unlikely and extraordinary love story ever told. Want to know what happens next with Dr. Herbert and Rob? No need to wonder. It's all in JC Calciano's book, Revenge of the Brobot. Get ready for a wicked, sexy romp in this campy, laugh-out-loud adventure. If you love sexy, silly stories, this is a must-read. Available now on Amazon and SteamyStoriesPodcast.com. So grab your copy of Revenge of the Brobot, settle into your favorite reading nook, and get ready for a story you won't be able to put down. Till next time, later, bro.